the Medal of
It's
Freedom,
pronounced
but then
Yusuf, by the way.
Yusuf.
It's Yusuf. I went in and I've been saying Yosef long
I
time.
honestly don't notice it. It's just like on this stuff. Like
When I think Yusuf Islam, Cat Stevens, and I think why you.
My dad's English, my mom's Persian. Mom wanted a Persian name. Dad wanted white people to be able to spell it. That's how we ended up.
Now white people can't say it.
That's hilarious.
So we have Sir Yosef Islam, Sir Yusuf West. Hello and welcome. We are the Sons of CPAs. Join us as we question the current state of the accounting and tax industry with the next generation of professionals leading this space. We are the change agents in an industry fraught with money and inertia. Let's begin the Sons of CPAs with your hosts, Jason Ackerman and Scott Scarano, and a very special guest, Sir Yusuf West.
Not officially Sir yet, but will be Sir one day. Knighted by the Queen. Since he's Canadian, that's possible. You were just saying that you were born in the UK and you immigrated to Canada. Why did your family come to Canada?
Quality of life, I would say, it was like the primary thing. If you're living in London, the cost of living was quite high. And so the theory was that coming to Canada or coming to the general Toronto area would be able to have a well-rounded life being here.
Is it a colder life too? Or was it just as cold?
So it's a different cold. It's
probably
like a
pretty similar
cold here. There, it's a wet cold. And so like if you go to like the north of England, I find the north of England colder than like a Toronto winter. Because like it's a wet cold. It gets into your bones.
Oof. Yeah, nobody likes wet cold. Like wet snow. Wet snow doesn't go together either. Like, but just wet in general. Yeah, I'm with you.
Toronto's like one of the coolest cities in the world. Tell us something cool about Toronto if we're going to visit, other than like every accounting thing seems to be either from there or Australia. Give us something cool about Toronto that us stupid Americans.
There's definitely something in the water where there's a lot of accounting tech that comes out of Toronto. What's something cool that most people don't know about Toronto? We have amazing beaches. So we've got like Woodbine Beach. It's beautiful, sunny. Like Toronto summers are like 25, 30 degrees Celsius. So like 75 to 80 Fahrenheit. And it's awesome. It's really beautiful. It's idyllic. The beaches are nice. You can go swimming. Highly recommend.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
When can I join?
Honestly, we've been trying to deport you for a while. I don't think Canada wants you.
You've been trying to deport me.
That's what I mean. I use a royal, like the Queen, a royal we.
Yeah.
Okay, so how'd you get into the accounting space?
How did I get into the accounting space? The backstory is I came out of university and started a company with a buddy. And that company was acqui-hired by Wave Accounting, or it used to be called Wave Accounting. It's now known as like Wave Apps, or I guess Wave Financial now. And we joined them to basically build out their personal finance solution because they're focused on like micro SMBs. And as we all know, there's a lot of commingling of funds and you can separate your personal finances from your business finances in that context. And so that was the first foray into like back office, like accounting technology for me. And we joined them to focus on the personal finance side, but ended up leading the growth function inside of that business. I think as someone who, I'm not the son of a CPA, and I didn't have much exposure beyond what most people would to accounting and bookkeeping. It was really enlightening to see how critical the back office is for small business owners. It's the only way they can really understand what's happening, and they struggle so hard to just get like basic cash flow visibility. And there were a couple events over the course of the year that I was there that really highlighted how important it is for you to actually have a really successful back office function for you to build a meaningful business. That was the first foray into like accounting tech.
So what were those things that you saw that were super important?
Started recording before 4:20. I would have been all right.
You're a little high right now. I'm gonna read everything and you can ad lib.
Yeah, I like this.
Okay,
let's go. Tax Bandits ad.
Tax Bandits is a modern, full-service tax filing platform. File 1099s, 941s, W-2s, 1095s, and many more additional forms with Tax Bandits' sleek, modern interface. With a few clicks of a button, you can upload your client's tax information directly into Tax Bandits, either with a direct integration with Xero, QuickBooks Online, or use a CSV. Once the data is in Tax Bandits, you can check the recipient's TIN with best-in-class TIN verification, and then safely and securely deliver to your clients or your clients' customers their tax forms.
So that's a great use case. I think I'm going to do that. Tell me about the verification. Is it secure?
It's secure. And when you're in app, it does it for you automatically. Apparently you can only data verify 3 times before it'll deliver. So they'll verify it twice. They figured all that shit out. They'll also mail out your 1099 forms for you for additional fee. Everyone has those clients. They won't ever open their email for the 1099s. You got to mail it to them. You just click a button. Tax Bandits will handle that for you.
So, is it built for accounting firms?
Tax Bandits is also built for accounting firms. They have completely redesigned their user interface to make it easy for you and your team members to quickly and efficiently deliver tax forms to your clients. Some accounting firm features include managing all your clients from one login. You can have multiple user permissions for your staff, real-time client communication in-app with clients, bulk distribution of recipient codes, and multiple payment options for your firm.
Well, that was recipient copies, not codes. But we don't have a code for them, do we?
No.
So visit taxbandits1099.com. I don't even know their website.
It's literally on the next line you're supposed to read.
So get started today by visiting taxbandits.com.
I remember that this was relatively early, like we're talking about 2013, effectively, or 2012. There was a change that we made from a software perspective. We didn't test things enough. We didn't get enough initial customer feedback. And we made this change, and it was a very meaningful change in December 2012. And small business owners were basically pretty upset.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
December
exactly.
31st.
Yeah, it was just, there was a heightened level of emotion, let's say that, right? And I think having tried to build a business like myself, and we had a lukewarm reaction, people didn't love us, people didn't hate us. You kind of want one or the other, right? When you're in the middle, it's you can't build something real around that. To see how much this piece of software that we were all working on mattered for these small business owners was unbelievable. It was a really painful time, and we all worked through it, and we learned a ton. And you look how far Wave has gone and scaled itself, but it was a great lesson in how critical a successful back office function truly is.
So there was a key point that we glossed over. Were you in business with your buddy before Wave? I see you as an entrepreneur. So talk about you're in industry. Did you guys go into business yourself, or tell us a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. So we basically started it was like a stock research platform. So if you're trying to pick a stock for yourself, you would plug in say you think Microsoft's a good stock to buy. You'd plug in MSFT into our platform, and then we would crunch 10 years of financial information to spit out a report on what we thought about the stock. Some of the quantitative valuation based, some of it was qualitative based. So it's, do we think the management team's good? Whatever it might be. And so we scaled that to 70,000 users as 2 people with very little cash. And we built a relationship with the founders of Wave. And as we were kind of going through that journey, one thing that was suggested was potentially us joining them and becoming part of their story, and perhaps becoming part of a bigger story, which is kind of what we believed was that joining them, we'd be part of something bigger, and we'd get to learn from people who are really high quality entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, that's pretty dope to just start something. You got 70,000 users. And then
so what's the biggest thing you learned from starting that first startup that you
or the biggest mistake you made too? The biggest thing you learned, or biggest mistake?
That could be a mistake. Could be anything.
Yeah, I would say revenue matters. I think is the lesson. So the model was basically we were offering a free product to the market, and we were going to monetize on advertising, which I think only works truly in a select group of cases. And we just didn't have something that we were close to the right idea. We knew that consumers wanted investing to be easy, but we just took the wrong approach. We thought investors wanted to do it themselves. They don't, right? They want to put their money in, Wealthfront or one of these robo advisors, and let the cash kind of compound with a pretty safe strategy. And, we were close to the right idea. We had the right high level idea, but the execution was the wrong one. The biggest learning is you can be really close to something big, but you can totally fucking waffle it.
It's hard in the beginning too, when you guys have your own, you're almost in your own bubble when you're creating this, and then adapting to consumer trends and adapting to what they want. It's kind of hard when you have your, if your vision isn't that strong and you're still early. So that's a really cool takeaway. Do do you still chat with this buddy? Are you guys still colleagues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a standing dinner date every 2 months.
Do you really?
Yeah, actually.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, it's always in our calendars. And so like we catch up, we celebrate each other's wins, we, cry over whatever challenges we're working through. So he actually just moved to LA with his girlfriend. And so I actually had a call with him tonight. But yeah,
Cool.
we stay in touch and huge amount of respect for each other. So it's good.
Yeah. Well, that's always good here too. Like people who start out together still conversing, still getting along, still friends.
So why'd you leave Wave?
I just kind of felt like I was going to get what I was going to get out of that. I'd gotten what I was going to get out of that experience. And I'd never really worked for someone else before. That was my first time working for someone else. I had my own challenges with that. I was like, I want to go like start something again, and kind of walked through the woods, as it were. And I eventually decided the best way to kind of get started and to really, like, if on the first try, I was, I didn't understand the pain points that customers were really experiencing, right? Or what they truly wanted. On this next round, I wanted to make sure that I was going deep enough that I really understood the pain points, and I was going to get people to like pay for whatever product we were going to go and build. And so I decided the best way to go through that process was to start consulting in the area where I wanted to build a product. And so it just so happened that that was actually how I joined HubDoc. It was supposed to be like a 3-month contract. And I was going to help them. I wanted to build a product in like analytics and kind of growth. And so I started helping them on that front. That's kind of where it started.
Well, so did this lead into some of your working directly with accountants, or were you doing that? I mean, I don't know how much of that you were doing at Wave.
It was a really interesting kind of almost like a microclimate at Wave, where if you were at Wave, you kind of felt like everyone was on the cloud.
Sure.
Right? We were signing up, 30,000 businesses per month or whatever it was. Like it was a really high number of SMBs, and there was all like micro, like solopreneur freelancers, but still like high number. And so when I joined HubDoc, I was like, hey, it's 2014. Everyone's on the cloud. We might just be super late. We might have missed this thing. And then, there's the rude awakening where you're trying to reach all these accountants and bookkeepers in the cloud, quote unquote, right?
That's a bubble. You were in a bubble, definitely, because 2014, it's like QuickBooks had a terrible cloud product.
Xero was like just in the US then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a ghost town. Dude, that's in a cool
It was a busy ghost town for you, though. You were in the middle of it, and you're like, man, this is too crowded.
No. Well, I wait, but then when I started at HubDoc, we were like reaching out to accountants and bookkeepers, like anyone we could try and talk to. And I'd get emails back. I remember one that I like loved this email. I was like, we're gonna automate data entry for you. We're gonna save you so much time. Like, it's gonna be great. And this guy wrote back to me. He's like, Yoseph, that sounds awesome. Like, I fully believe that's gonna make a lot of sense. But like, what's Deborah gonna do? That's Deborah's job to like enter all the data. And I was like, yeah, Deborah's smart. We'll retrain. There's got to be other things you can have her work on. So it was a long, those first 9 months, we were just slogging it out, just knowing the market was going to tip eventually, but it was going to take time. And so we just needed to continue to rack up wins. And over time, we knew that eventually things would pick up and cloud adoption would happen.
So Yoseph, the consultant, goes to HubDoc, and are you consulting there, or what did you end up doing there?
Yeah, I was basically working there like full time. And anytime you join a new business, there's what you think you're signing up for and what you've actually signed up for. The founders kind of had a view of like, hey, here are these challenges that we need help with. And a lot of those were right. And were the challenges I ended up working on. But there was also just the fact that we had zero revenue, right? And so initially it was like, getting on the phone with customers, trying to sell them this product that like wasn't even built. We had like the screen scraping, like bank statement fetching stuff
I mean,
there.
that was a huge selling point. That was the value add for me personally.
100%. But Scott, in those early days, we didn't even have the connections. Like the Jamies would go down to the States and open different bank accounts at different institutions so that we would have login credentials to build these, like, we call them like robots to fetch the information, right? This is how it started.
Yeah.
And we're selling this like very much half-baked.
How many bank accounts did you have randomly?
I personally didn't. I'm sure the Jamies could share.
Just like flying to like Arkansas Bank and Trust,
So,
and just being like, I need that account.
I do see a lot of trend where things exist and then they get a name. So were these just RPAs? And then eventually, everybody knows what an RPA is, but were you guys, when you said robots that were scraping, was it really just like, in essence, robotics process automation? And then the banks shut that shit down?
Yeah, so it's like called screen scraping. And so we'd write a script that would say, hey, when you go to bankofamerica.com, look for this login button in the top right-hand corner of the website, hit the login, go to the login page, enter the login credentials, hit login, and you would just take you step by step through until you get through to like the bank statement PDF, get to that page, hit download. There are additional PDFs, download them to our server, and then we would add the, show them up in your HubDoc account.
Okay. So if any firm listening out there, if you can take those instructions, go ahead and make your own RPA to pull bank statements, because that you could sell that for a lot.
But that's so hard to do because like the banks are changing all the time. And like you said, the multi-factor authentication probably got rid of that.
I think that's basically the challenge, right? Like we were pretty good at it. And, in the heyday, it would work 70% of the time.
Yeah.
70% of the time, every time.
Yeah, when it worked, it was beautiful. Like I would log in and it would load up every statement that I needed from one account. And I was like, oh, this is what I've always needed. You know how much time this saved us. And then when you assume it's working and you go in there and it's not, and then you got to, so.
Yeah, that's the problem Xero's having now is like with multi-factor authentication, and they're trying to go through Yodlee, and like it's really complex.
And so you're at HubDoc when Xero acquired them. It'd be interesting to hear, did you know this was going to happen, or did it just hit you blindsided, like as an employee?
Yeah. So I wasn't there when the acquisition actually was completed. I left about 4 months before the official announcement. There was kind of two options on the table. One was raising another round of financing, and quite a large one, from like a very excellent VC firm, or kind of partnering up with Xero and doing that deal. I think these things are always hard, when you're in it and you're trying to decide, like, do you want to swing, or do you want to kind of punch it in at that moment? I think ultimately the way we looked at the business was that this functionality should live inside the accounting system, because it's almost like pre-accounting, and decided that based on what we saw as like a shifting landscape and kind of the risks that might be involved in the future, that actually selling the company was the right decision to make.
Yeah, it does seem natural that Xero
definitely
would
turned
have
out
that.
to be the right decision.
Yeah. I mean, the right decision for you. I'm not sure where the traction is at Xero and when that's going to be integrated fully, but let's not talk about HubDoc today. Let's get into dun dun dun.
I thought we were talking about HubDoc.
Relay. I know, yeah. This was the HubDoc episode where we don't talk about HubDoc. So you ended up taking option B. I'm out. Peace out. Did you already have like this ultimate plan, or like how this came about?
I can tell you the genesis story. So I left, I would say basically May 2018, and the company was officially, the announcement was August 1 of that same year. So my journey was like, I never expected to stay at HubDoc as long as I stayed, right there. I was there, almost 4.5 years, still really close with the Jamies, and, had a great experience. I got to be as close to the middle as you want to get without being one of the founders. So great experience, great learning. And throughout that time, anytime there was a challenge that we faced as a business or a problem that came up, I would write down that problem in an Evernote notebook, which, now feels, antiquated. because everyone's using like Notion or whatever,
I
Google.
still use Evernote.
Yeah. Okay.
The
thanks.
elephant
I haven't
for
even
life.
got to using Evernote. I still use a Moleskine notebook. Come on, like it's not old fashioned yet. Oh.
And so, yeah, once I left, I was very much ready to go back to, doing my own thing. I like kind of felt like the HubDoc experience was almost as good of one as I could get if I was going to work for someone else. I definitely explored like, talking to different founders and kind of seeing like, oh, maybe I should at least have these conversations and see how I feel. But for me, it was pretty clear. There was no conversation where I was like, oh, maybe I would do this with this person. I just wasn't excited enough. And so I went through that list of ideas, and one of those ideas was basically like business banking. And it's such a huge pain point for small business owners. It was a challenge we had at HubDoc. And I had this potentially very meaningful insight into, the small business's challenges with banking, given my experience, right? So like selling to accountants and bookkeepers and their small business clients at HubDoc, it was very clear that just getting access to financial information, getting access to bank statements, getting access to check images was like a huge challenge. And that's without even including like all the requirements on like receipts and invoices that you need to be able to really make sense of the data that's coming in from the bank. And then we were global strategic partners with both Intuit and Xero. And their number one feature request back then, and like still even today, right? It's not like better cash flow reporting. It's just like bank feeds at work, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the baseline. It's like, can you actually get my data in?
Yeah,
And
Xero
so-
went to just getting direct connections because that was the only real solution for them, at least at the time.
Yeah.
And I think it still is now.
Yeah, that absolutely is the right answer. I think the challenge there is like the big banks really struggle with software, and they're trying to get better as fast as they can, but it's they've got competing priorities. And so when we thought about like the kind of challenges small business owners have in terms of like cash flow visibility, or like we've all heard about like real-time financials, and it's here, and like in truth, real-time financials for most businesses is like 30 days in the rearview mirror, right?
Mhm.
Best case. And when we kind of stepped back and thought about, okay, how do you solve this? Like, do you build middleware between the bank and the accounting system? Like, what do you do? And we realized that the only way to actually solve it is to effectively be the bank, be the system of record. And in that scenario, you can actually control the information. You can make sure it's high quality. You can make sure that there's data portability. You can get data in, you can get data out. And you can make sure that it's like deeply integrated into the system small business owners use, right? If you ask a small business owner what matters to them from a banking partner or a bank that they might be using, I think first it's like fees, second is customer service, and then third, it's actually like accounting integrations. Does it work with my back office? And so we thought, what if we could build a bank that was like deeply integrated into the small business back office? Could we alleviate some of these pain points around access and actually increase financial visibility for these small business owners and ultimately help them become more successful?
Yeah.
But before you go, like, opening up a bank is, I'm guessing, complicated, lots of regulations. And there's a lot of players in the field that are kind of similar to you. Like, what was the hardest thing about, like, okay, I wanted to start a bank. What's like something you didn't know that you had to do that you had to do? It just seems complicated. It seems like opening a bank is complicated.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you're sitting there. So I was actually sitting in the old HubDoc office as I was like kind of contemplating this, and thought like, this is a crazy idea, right? This is like super nuts. Like, how is this actually feasible? And so as we do at Relay, we start with the customer. What's the customer's best experience going to be? And we realized that effectively the best experience would be if we were actually a financial institution, if we were the bank, if we controlled everything top to bottom, like ignoring budget, capital, whatever. If we were just the bank, we'd be able to like deliver the best experience possible for these small business owners. So I knew that wasn't the answer, but like we had to go through the process of figuring out why it wasn't the answer. So one part of it is like capital requirements. You need a lot of cash. So you have to just have $50 million like sitting in a bank account for like 4 years. 2, you have to hire a bunch of banking execs. What they're going to do for those 4 years, I don't know. But like that was part of the process. And so coming from like a software background, anytime you're launching a product, you want to de-risk that business as quickly as possible, and you want to get feedback from the market. because that's the only way you're really going to learn. That wasn't like a great option. We looked at partnering directly with a financial institution to basically plug into their systems. But that we'd seen a couple of competitors burn like 2 years of their time and like a lot of capital to try and make that happen. And we realized the best way to actually get started was to use like a banking service provider, or kind of like a Stripe for banking. So they have a modern set of APIs. So they've done the work to integrate into the underlying bank. So in this case, Evolve Bank and Trust out of Tennessee. And we just write to their modern set of APIs, and that they enable us to like spin up new bank accounts, new cards, new payments. And we were able to do that really easily. So that was how we kind of figured out that, okay, this would be actually our fastest path to market and ensure we can get customer feedback as quickly as possible.
So is the plan eventually, like once you grow to a certain level, that you kind of eliminate the Tennessee bank and you become your own bank?
I think that's where the regulatory environment is going. Like, it seems like we're going to have a fintech banking charter. What form that takes exactly, I think, is to be determined. But you can see folks like Square like applying for like a banking charter. So I think it's only a matter of time, as Relay scales, that we're going to be able to do that.
So when you talk to accountants like myself, what's the, because you've really built Relay from the accounting perspective, which like our biggest issue is we can't get into the banks, or we can't get what we need from the banks, and we have to get the client login, and half the time it doesn't work, and then we're going back and forth with the client, and then it doesn't connect with Xero.
We don't
QuickBooks
care about
or
fees
whatever.
or customer service. We care about functionality. Like you can have the best customer service, no fees, and if it doesn't work with our platform, then we can't work with it. Sorry, you should get a different bank.
But so what, like when you're trying to sell a traditional accountant that, they're used to going down the street and opening up an account at Wells Fargo or wherever, what's like, how do you sell the accountant on Relay?
Yeah, I would just start talking about all their pain points. So like I can give the pitch on Relay, but like here are the pain points that we solve for accountants and bookkeepers and their clients. One, holding on to bank logins for their clients, right? So, perhaps they have them in LastPass or 1Password, or maybe they have them on like a notebook that they share around the office. But holding on to your client's bank logins increases a lot of financial liability for your firm. Two, with those logins, you're dealing with 2FA codes, MFA, RSA keys as well. And, you're doing this dance often with your client where you're like, hey, I need to like do your accounting now. Can you send me that code? Three, bank feeds break all the time, as you both know. And in that context, not only is it annoying to have to get them going again, but also you end up with situations where you get duplicate transactions. So it just creates a lot of messiness and a lot of administration dealing with pretty basic banking functions, in my opinion. And then lastly, you have to make sense of the information once you get it into the accounting system. So, when a check is deposited in a traditional financial institution, it comes through as mobile check deposit or check 1234. That doesn't give you much information from an accounting and bookkeeping perspective to be able to actually do the reconciliation. So those are kind of the core pain points from like a banking perspective that every accountant or bookkeeper faces in one form or another. And so when we built Relay, we wanted to build banking that was amazing for accountants and bookkeepers and their clients. And there are three things that people love about the product. One is they get a partner portal similar to like QBOA or Xero HQ, and you can manage not only your clients and have access to your clients' Relay bank accounts from your own login, you can also manage staff access, and it's all permissioned. Two, you get a direct, reliable bank feed that never sends across a duplicate transaction. So it syncs every 3 hours. So going back to that idea of trying to get to like real-time financials, syncs every 3 hours. And we keep track of every single transaction we send across to the general ledger. So if there ever is a break in the connection, we don't send across a duplicate. And as Scott mentioned, it is a direct bank feed. So it's API to API to Xero or QuickBooks Online. There is no Yodlee, there's no Plaid, there's no middle person in that context. And then lastly, we send across enriched transaction data. So when a check is deposited on Relay, you get the vendor, the date, the amount, the memo, all of that key information actually coming across on the bank feed. And then inside of Relay, you can easily see the check image if you just like to verify the information as well.
It's the definition of a deep integration.
So that all sounds great, but how do I sell that to my clients?
Question we get all the time. So The positioning for your clients is basically Relay is like a smart operating account. We make it easy for them to collaborate internally with permissioned access. So you could issue cards to employees, and that's the only thing you're going to see, that card and any transactions related to that card. 2, you can actually like automate AP using Relay. So we integrate into both QuickBooks Online and Xero, have multi-stage approval workflows inside of your bank account, and you get same-day payments as well, which is really powerful. So it's free same-day ACH, free domestic wire, free international wire, all as part of like our Relay Pro package, which is like $30 a month. It's like a crazy good deal.
Well, one of your lessons learned, I don't mean to interrupt. One of your lessons learned early on.
Please interrupt.
Revenues, right? Relay's got to make money too, but I think that's a very reasonable price to be able to do this, like to be able to automate AP, and to have that multi-stage. Like this is effectively what people have wanted to do within Xero or within QuickBooks. I don't even know if you can or not in QuickBooks, but it's almost like working within your system, and that two-way integration is beautiful. I think that's a huge value add to be able to have it both sides of the street.
Yeah, like the sale for the accounting and bookkeeping firm. And by the way, we make money in other ways other than just like stuff. I just want to mention that.
Banks know how to make money. If you can't make money as a bank, that's bad.
Yeah, so it's obviously good. But on the note of like positioning it, I think sometimes people get hung up on like, oh, do I need to get my clients to switch banks? As though it's like an or, right? Either they use Bank of America or they use Relay. And in some cases, that's a sale you can make. But oftentimes selling it as an and is the answer. Most small business owners have, a couple bank accounts anyway. So they have like 2.63 banking relationships on average. So having a separate financial institution relationship is like not a crazy idea on its own. And 2, don't focus the conversation on switching banks. Focus the conversation on like solving your client's pain point, just as you would any other application. So if you want to help your clients manage AP, or your clients are like, hey, it's such a pain in the butt having to like ping you with the 2FA code every month, or like, why does my accounting take so much longer? Or why can't it be faster, right? An answer is, hey, if we use Relay, we can actually deliver the work faster, right? Our mutual friend, Nicole McKenzie, her accounting processes are 5 times faster, right? When her clients are on Relay.
She may not have 2.63 bank accounts with her clients, but one thing that Nicole and I had discussed, we could possibly give a discount to a client if they're using Relay because it makes our job easier. So it's an easy sell on both streets or both sides of the street. It's like you upcharge clients for multiple bank accounts and for a ton of transactions and things like that. Well, if they make our job easier and they're using better tools, then we can make it more appealing to them too. I think there's a certain value add for us, for a client to be on Relay as well. But for the client, what are some benefits on their side? Is there anything on the way, like maybe rewards or things like this that would make it more appealing and an easier sell? I think that I look for the effortless sell. And in a lot of cases, I'm looking at like financing that a lot of clients have all of these 2.63. I'm going to keep using that number because I like it. Like 2.63 banking relations because they have line of credit here. They have a credit card with this bank and then they opened up an account. It's like all of these things are happening. So at what point do you guys start offering other services?
Yeah. I think, people definitely love the AP automation, like just automating bills and helping kind of that process. I think for accounts and bookkeepers generally, it's like, it's a super light lift. And for the small business owner, it's like, oh my God, this is great. So I don't want to de-emphasize that, but on the way, our next kind of like major product push is going to be launching like a Relay credit card. And I think that's going to be like a big winner. We're still working through, whether we'll do cashback or rewards or kind of what the right mix is for small business owners. But yeah, we're 100% open to feedback around how that should
Sons of CPAs is 100% powered by Relay. We have our own, we just opened our Relay account. And I want to be able to spend on my watch with a Relay credit card.
Well, we have a debit card now. You can do that.
Oh, we have a debit card.
I haven't given it to you because I don't trust you.
He doesn't trust my spending.
When you have an employee, like Scott's my employee, obviously. I don't want him to spend anything. I don't give him a card. It's perfect.
So he has controls on there too. Relay has built-in controls. And if he gives me a card and I get a card, he can put spending limits on there for
I already did that. $10.
I
What's
got a $10 a month.
$10 a year?
Oh, Jesus.
Spend it wisely.
Relayfi.com/sons of CPAs. We have a URL.
With Relay, your clients get a smart operating account that includes up to 20 checking accounts without fees or minimums, and MasterCard debit cards that can be issued online in seconds.
That actually was a pretty good read right there. So we just signed on a new client. They're overseas. They're in the UK. They're starting a US arm, and we're setting them up on Relay as their bank and bill pay provider. They don't have a ton of bills, just different minimal things that we're going to handle for them. We're going to do it through Relay. We got single or multi-step approval rules to auto sync the paid bills back to the client's GL, which is in our case Xero. It's refreshing and very profitable.
That's beautiful.
What about you?
We're trying to figure out a way to implement this because I do think it's going to save a bunch of time. The biggest problem with Xero right now is the online banking feeds, and when a feed goes down, it's a pain in the ass. Well, if you have an online bank that was designed with a direct feed, that in itself saves so much time. We sell the shit out of this app.
Yeah, I got a little high since we started reading, and I kind of forgot where we were at. Closing arguments here.
I have nothing to say other than I'm glad that you're high and you told everyone that, because that makes me feel a lot better about my life. And I like Relay. We're going to use it more. You guys should too.
I think I make you feel better about your life. You see how bad things could be.
I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking.
So I think you should just visit relayfi.com/sons of CPAs. That's sons with an S, SONS of CPAs with an S, CPAs. There's 3 S's in there. You can't get it wrong. Sons of CPAs.
That's beautiful.
If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't heard of Relay Financial, check it out.
These ad reads, I mean, this is a real ad. They're getting their money's worth. We have our own code. Please use the code, people. That's how we make money. So
the code doesn't make us any money. This ad was paid for up front. What it
the
does
more people
do, though,
who use the code, that means they're going to do our ad more.
Go to relayfi.com/sons of CPAs.
Okay, the other big thing for my clients is like, the banking, all that stuff is good, but like when they need a loan or like the PPP comes up and they really need that banking relationship. I think that's a big drawback from the accounting perspective. It's like, yeah, we love everything Relay does, but like when the client needs a loan, what do?
Yeah, like I think we underestimate how competitive the market is for SMB lending. Right? Like, do you think it's really going to make a huge difference that you've been with a bank for a period of time? Like, they might want to tell you that that's true, but if you've got a good business that makes money and you can tell a story of like, hey, taking out this loan is going to help us get to this next stage. There's going to be a bunch of banks that are going to be open to lending, if not, perhaps online platforms that do lending.
But you do have clients that have that issue. Yeah,
Some
if you're making
yeah,
lots of money, there's like no problem getting a loan, obviously.
Yeah. I was thinking in the context of an accounting firm, but a context of a business, sometimes there is risk, and if they don't have a lot of equity. But either way, like some banks, I think the reality is smaller banks tend to focus on that local relationship, and maybe they think they can go take somebody's car if they live closer to them, or they can do certain things easier, like send somebody over there and knock on the door.
Well, I think they want to talk with. I think sometimes you just want that old school relationship. Yeah. But I think the solution is it's the 2 bank solution, like you said before. Like, yeah, you've got the local bank that and you can go in there, but their online banking isn't great. So you need the Relay solution to help you, do the day-to-day functions.
So in this 2.63, is Relay the 0.63 or is Relay the 1? Like, who's the 0.63?
Well, I think that's a stat. So I think it's somewhere, it's probably 1 would be my guess.
I mean, that wasn't a real question, but thanks for answering.
So So I guess what's something else in the accounting world that needs to be solved? So I think this is like a big issue. It's like, yeah, the accountant needs visibility into all the banking, AP, AR, the transactions, checks, blah, blah, blah. What's like another thing that you see from your experience that like we need help?
Well, let's talk about a problem that hasn't been solved yet. Unsolvable
Yeah,
problems.
that's what I just asked. Jesus Christ. Let him answer. This is what I deal with. Do you talk with Scott all the time? Does he act the same way to you?
Yeah,
He asks a question and then he answers it. So.
we both love Rick and Morty, so I think that's like where we're bonded over.
We are, and it's I don't know who's the Rick and who's the Morty in this relationship, but I think the context of that's a good statement too, because that's the way I think, and that's why I like this show, is because they have context shift all the time. They bring it back, and then eventually they come back around, and it makes sense. And I think that's kind of how I am in a lot of ways. So.
I'll ask you a question. I'll ask a guest question. He asks the same question. He'll interrupt me and ask the same question. That's how we roll.
If I didn't hear the good answer that I wanted to hear, I will ask it again.
So here's the area that I think a lot of firms aren't spending enough time on, and I think it's a surprising thing, is spending time thinking about like their security kind of playbook. Like, how do they build data security into their systems and redundancy and ensure that there are like, minimal risks from like an internal perspective. So we actually put together like a white paper with our partners at Rewind and Practice Protect on like, how do you actually build like a data security kind of playbook for your firm? And there's just a lot of considerations that need to happen as part of like building out that process. So like Rewind is like great for creating redundancy. It's basically like a cloud SaaS backup tool. So it'll back up your Xero, it'll back up your QBO. So you always have records, and anytime you need to go back in time, say something gets messy, you can actually just hit the rewind button, literally. And then for Practice Protect, they're like, making it easier for you to actually manage critical information inside your practice. So on the issue of, say, sensitive information of your clients, having that not live in something that can't be tracked where there isn't an audit trail, I think is like actually a core risk that a lot of accounting and bookkeeping firms kind of have allowed to occur as a result of occupational hazards, right? And so I would say like that, I think that's one of the biggest issues that the accounting and bookkeeping community needs to pay more attention to is security best practices.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's definitely, for us, it's like, yeah, we have all this client data, not just tax returns, but like bank logins and stuff. And how do we make sure that all that is secure?
We want our cake and we want to eat it too, right? We want everything to be easy. We want to be able to see everything, but we also don't want all the 2FA and the stuff that we have to, I mean, maybe we don't want that, but we just don't want to deal with the headache of everything, and we want it to be effortless. So how, and that's kind of to your point.
I think you want things to work.
You want things to work first, but then you also want them to be safe. Like I actually do care about stuff being safe. And I feel like to a certain degree, if we're cutting corners, or if we're doing, and I don't think Relay's cutting any corners. I think that you do really want to focus on that protection and safety. So
where do you see Relay going in the next, like in 5 years, where do you see Relay is going to be?
Yeah, like our goal is to build like a long lasting company. I've kind of had, been lucky enough to have like a couple hits along the way. And I'd really love to be able to work on this for like 10 years, basically. So our goal as a company is to automate financial management for these small business owners and scale to hundreds of thousands of businesses in the next 5 years. And that's really where we're focusing. That's it. And you can imagine a world where we've talked about some of the ancillary services, right? So like you have the core banking today, you have the AP automation, we'll have credit cards live in a month. What are the additional solutions that we could bundle in that makes Relay such a compelling offer for your practice and your clients? And what, if we've made this much progress so far, what would that look like in 5 years? I think that's like a pretty exciting question.
So this is taboo, but we've talked about acquisitions. In what space would a Relay acquisition make sense? Would it be a GL? Would it be a bank that buys Relay and it says, Bank of America, now powered by Relay. What makes sense to you? And I know that, it's not something that's easy to talk about. You're the CEO, but then again, let's hear it. What do you think?
Scott has a blank check. Just tell him how much you want.
Yeah, Scott, are you?
Paget powered by Relay doesn't make sense to me. Like that's
No, Scott Serrano powered by Relay.
That I could.
No, wait, hold on. Sons of CPAs powered by
Sons
Relay.
of CPAs powered
Oh
by
my
Relay
God,
is the name of this episode already. Like that's it. That's
Okay. You can have all the money in our Relay bank account right now.
Nice. I think, acquisitions are super tough. My preference is to build something that's going to be like independent and that will last. I think we could all argue whether it's a general ledger, like you could argue that like Xero would be a natural home for this if we were to sell. Same with like Intuit, you can kind of look at their QB Cash product, but there's a power that comes with focus.
Intuit can't focus though. Let's stick with the Xero in that conversation. Intuit's all over the place.
No, I think
Intuit can focus.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think Intuit is very focused.
Yeah.
Like Sasan is like a really excellent leader. He might be pretty tough and do some stuff that's like pretty gutsy, right? Like you look at the acquisitions he's made. He's a pretty smart guy.
I really do like Intuit. I'm just I live in my Xero bubble, so I try not to get out of it. I try not to think about others.
As an entrepreneur, like stepping back from Relay, like you started Relay. What are like, you've been on all these places along the way. Like, what have you learned that you're like, I definitely want to implement this culture into Relay?
Yeah, like I think the culture that we built at HubDoc was, I think, pretty excellent. Like it was definitely in my career the best culture I'd been part of. So if you look at like startup cultures in general, there's kind of two ends of the spectrum. You've kind of got party boy keg culture where everyone's drinking a little too much and having too much fun, and then you've got the other end of the spectrum where everyone's working themselves to death and like they hate their life. And HubDoc was this wonderful like middle ground of a group of hardworking people who wanted to win. They were empathetic towards the customer, high integrity, lots of transparency. And, we just focused on getting better every day. And like, we had fun, right? We were selling like perhaps the most boring product you can imagine, right? It's like document management software for accountants and bookkeepers, right? Like you almost fall asleep, like listening to that as a sentence, but it was great. Like we had so much fun. It was really, really great. We loved our customers, loved working with each other, and we learned a ton. And so, when I look at like kind of the culture we're building at Relay, it's pretty similar. I would say that there might be a couple differences just based on the nature of our business, where we have to be like extra vigilant, right? Because if you're selling document management software, that's one thing. But when you're dealing with people's money, there's a heightened sensitivity around that naturally. And so we work hard every day to like build trust with our customers. And that is a core focus of every team member at Relay.
So as the
Relay
CEO,
Bank and Trust. We can call it that. We can square up the logo and call it Relay Bank and Trust one day.
So as the CEO, like, how do you focus on that culture? Like, what are you doing to make sure that culture is set the way you want it?
So I think culture definitely comes from leadership, and not only myself, but the other leaders we have in place across the company. I think the way that you set culture is by, I don't think it's something you just write down. I think it's done basically by example. A couple things we did in the earliest days, which I think were critical to the culture we have now. When we were just 3 people, we could have gotten a little cubicle at WeWork, right? And built from there. We worried about culture in that context. Like I know the WeWorks in the States are perhaps a bit better, but some of the kind of co-working spaces that we saw in Toronto, everyone would shuffle out by 5. Once it was like 5:10, it's like a ghost town. And that was not the type of culture we wanted to create. We wanted to create a culture where people are like really invested in our success and are willing to do whatever it takes to make our customers successful. And so we specifically got our own workspace, which is what I'm in today, and spent a little bit more money because we wanted to invest in that culture and make sure we were setting the right foundation. Because if we got it right on those first, say, 10 hires, we're going to have 10 more of each of those individuals as we scale to 100 people. And so that was like, I think the most critical part. And then as we're hiring people, we vet them for cultural, I don't say cultural fit, I would say cultural add. What are the pieces here that we might be missing, or that we want, perhaps we want more constructive conflict. If we wanted to add that, what would a leadership hire that has that kind of built in actually look like? And how do we make sure it stays constructive? So I think there's a lot of intention that comes with it, and consistency day to day.
So instead of investing $50 million in a bank, you invested in an office.
So I think like a lot of companies are, with COVID, we've shifted away from offices, and I think we struggle a lot. Like, do we need an office? Do we not need an office? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a tough one. I think we're all used to working from home now. I think that's, especially if you like have a family and kids and you're like, I got to drive 30 minutes to an hour to get to work. And that's time I could be spending with my family. I think that matters.
I beg to differ. At first, I thought that was a value add, but I'll be honest.
Scott hates his family, so it's actually, he enjoys that time.
I don't hate my family. I actually care too much, and I don't think I'm getting any work done. I am not productive at home. This is a real fact. Like, I spend too much time with the family or doing other things that I don't see it as work, and I can't split the difference of, should I be working or should I not? And sometimes I just don't. And people work too much. You said, like, some people say, you got to separate that. Well, I can't separate it, but it's also because I can't get back to work. I think I need an office.
So I think the future is like this hybrid model where there's a lot more flexibility to work from home when you want it. So we're working on our back to work plan. And our expectation is that folks are going to be in like 2 to 3 days a week, kind of maximum. And we're just trying to make sure we have kind of a density of our company coming in on specific days. So we still have that office experience. You have the energy. Scott, I'm similar to you. Like, I don't like to work from home. I know I'm not as productive. And so I come into the office. I've come into the office every day over the course of this last 18 months because, unless I feel really guilty, and then I'll like sit up late and I'm like, this is terrible, I hate it. And I'll come back to the office. But I think the name of the game is flexibility. I don't think you have to be remote or you have to be fully in office. Like, we're hearing stuff about companies that are mandating you got to be here Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
That's the banks.
No,
the banks.
software companies.
Software companies too, yeah.
That's crazy.
And
larger companies, they have to do, I don't think they have to, but a lot of them do. I like what you're saying here, because naturally people want independence. At least they work for a job, they enjoy their job, but they don't want to be dictated to, and they don't want to say you have to do this. They want to do it sometimes, but they don't want somebody to tell them they have to, I think.
Yeah, I want to figure out a way where they want to come to the office. I think like some software companies, like I've been to Facebook's campus. It's like, I would never leave there. That place is freaking sick. So how do we do that I've honestly never understood why a large CPA firm has not created like a Facebook style campus for their team.
Because they would never get anything work done. It's still like it would just be social hour.
No, but you get them, you get
Facebook
people
is
there.
for socializing.
So
I've always wondered that.
Accountants don't like open office. I'll say this. I had an open office. Accountants don't like it, and they can't get work done, and they want a place where they can close their door. So I don't think a lot of accountants really, there's two types of accountants. There's the socialite that wants to talk to clients, client facing, and then there's the back office, and they want their door closed. Like, they don't want to be interrupted. This is what I'm dealing with, smaller scale.
I'm interested in our CEO here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What does our CEO think?
We're talking to me. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we were discussing it internally of like, okay, how do we incentivize people to come back? And I'm like, I want people to be healthy. I want them to be taken care of, but I don't want our team members to be like spoiled, right? I think we all can think of like the entitled tech worker who expects, best in class espresso every morning, La Croix or whatever it is. But, I was talking to our head of talent who was like trying to talk me into doing, yoga classes at the office and stuff like that, and communal activities that would be like healthy and positive, that would get people to come in. And I've started to socialize, like we're going to do our first, we have this like new office coming online, and at this first event at our new office, and I was socializing people coming back. And I was talking to one person in particular, and I was going through the list of things. I was like, we're gonna have like nice coffee, we're gonna have like good snacks, you can be able to see your coworkers. And she's kind of like, okay, yeah, fine. And I'm like, and we're gonna have nice drinks like La Croix. And then suddenly she was in.
Oh wow.
And I was like, okay, like fine.
Yeah, the snacks are big. Like you do like
Gusto's known for their snacks.
You do some hit waters and some some nice granola bars, and we're in.
100%. Yeah.
It's so interesting. It's the small things like that, and it's hard to know what the small things are.
Right. Or like doing like catered lunches, right? If you can do it. And so, I think for me, I have to put aside like my own conditioning over the years and just listen to like what team members want, what's going to get them engaged. And I personally think there's value to people being in the office a couple times a week, because it just increases collaboration, builds team cohesion, builds the energy and momentum around the company. So whatever it takes to help that happen, I'm all ears, as long as we're staying productive and maintaining our culture.
Yeah, you want to still be able to build up momentum and be scrappy too. You don't want to spoil everybody. I think
Exactly.
that builds inertia.
Well, there's like but there's a thin line between that, and it's like everything running a business. It's like that thin line and trying to find where it is.
How many employees are there at Relay now? Like you were talking about 3 in the early days. How many now?
Yeah, we're like 35 people now.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we should be like 50 by the end of the year, and then 100 at the end of next year.
Nice.
Are you afraid of that? Or are you excited by that?
Kind of both.
Okay.
Right? I mean, of course, if you're any good, I think you should be excited and scared of that, right? Because that type of growth is exciting because it means we get to do more things and hopefully build a more successful company. And then you should be fearful of it because, like, one, what if you hire the wrong people? That's messy. It's not a great experience for them. It's not a great experience for the company or yourself. 2, how do you maintain the culture as you scale? There's an existential risk to that. I've seen cultures go bad, and it's really not pretty. It takes a lot of work to get it back on track. That's where the fear comes from. And I think there's gonna be a lot of hard work that we're gonna do to allow for that growth, but make sure it's sustainable.
Yeah. I personally, I fear losing control sometimes, but that's a good thing. Like, I think giving up control.
You've already lost control, Scott.
I've lost control of myself. Yeah. And that's the one thing that I got to maintain.
All right. This has been amazing. We've taken up too much of your time. So tell us, for the accountant, if they're interested in signing up for Relay or maybe getting some training on Relay, where do they go?
Go to relayfi.com. There's an accountants and bookkeepers tab right at the top. So it's relayfi.com, and just hit up that accountants and bookkeepers tab, and you can schedule time with one of our team or learn more or whatever makes sense for your practice.
Who owns relay.com?
So when traveling, do you know those like little convenience stores, the Relay? Yeah, that's
who owns it. Oh man, yeah, that's because a lot of people call it Relay.
Did you try and talk with them to get the .com?
We haven't. I mean, in my dreams, there was a trade waiting to happen, but why they would take Relay FI?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Is there something we should do personally, or never talk with you?
Twitter. There's Twitter, right?
Yeah, you could follow me on Twitter, YC West, on Twitter, or you could add me on LinkedIn. That's good. Or send me an email. Fuck it, why not?
Let's do it.
Let's figure it out.
Everyone send him an email.
Let me put a plug. I want to plug us. If you're listening, can you leave a review? Or what's something else that we should plug?
You should go on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen and give us a 5-star review.
If you give a bad review, Yosef will email. Yosef. Fuck. I got to stop saying Yosef. Like, I got to really get that out. Because my dad's
Joseph.
Let me bring this back in. So my wife is from Mexico, and the Y is a J, and my dad's name is Joseph. So I always thought naturally it's Joseph and Yosef. So it's Yusuf. I'm gonna fix that. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name.
God will talk forever. You have important CEO things to do. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you for joining us.